How's it going, everybody? I'm Ethan. I'm the host to CWL Recap. Today we got a good show for you guys. It should be a shorter one. We only have 4 segments. Today we're going to go over last week's matches, of course, and we're going to do some predictions. Before we start the video, I got to ask you guys to comment, subscribe, and leave a like on the video if you guys enjoyed. Please subscribe to my main channel, Ethan HD. This is going on both channels, on my CWL Spot new channel and Ethan HD. As well as there's a link in the description for a Patreon and a donation link so you guys can help me off my lighting setup. It sucks right now. And of course, this is going to be live streamed before the event now. So hope you guys enjoy the video. Let's get right into it. Starting off from the show, we're going to start off on Tuesday, and the schedule went like this. Rise versus Unilad, Illuminosity versus E-United, Optic versus Unilad, Complexity versus Rise, and then finally Mind Freak versus Tainted Minds. My predictions were Rise were going to win, E-United were going to win, Optic was going to win, Rise was going to win again, and then Mind Freak were going to take it. And then the outcome was Rise with a 3-0, Luminosity with a 3-2, Optic in with a 3-1, Rise with a 3-0, and Mind Freak with the 3-0. So I had E-United taking it over Luminosity as like my super pick, but that did not quite turn out. They almost did. They got reverse sweep. We'll get into that later. And then my record on the day was 4-1, so it wasn't terrible. And there's actually a lot closer matches this week than I expected. So the first match of the day was Rise versus Unilad. Rise won this 3-0, and the map number 1 was a Gibraltar hardpoint. Rise ended up winning this 250 to 168. Unilad had a really great start. They had a 50-second hold on the first pit in a hill. And then Rise finally found the footing and brought it back to tie the game up by the second rotation. In the second rotation, Rise ended up taking the lead and grew it over 60 points, and they finally locked down pit center on the final rotation to put Unilad away. Map number 2 is Valk S&D. This one was a Rise 6-2. Rise Nation started out by taking the first 4 rounds, and TJ got full streaks, so that pretty much put the game away. Unilad were able to take 2 rounds in a row after Rise took the first 4, but then Rise just ended up taking the last 2 with the streaks. Final map was Arden's Forest, and Rise won this one 4-2. Unilad actually struck first in the first half, and they also put a flag up near the end of the second half, but Rise ended up countering at the very end and getting a flag cap. So Unilad was only up 2-1 at the end of the first half. Rise ended up getting streaks on the end of the first half, and they ended up using those in the second half to get their second flag cap, as well as one last flag cap near the end of the game to put themselves up 3-2 and win the series 3-0. Next matchup was Luminosity versus E-United, and like I said before, Luminosity won this one 3-2. This was a reverse sweep for Luminosity. They looked really rough going out, and E-United looked really good, but Luminosity ended up coming back in this series. Map number 1 was London Docks, and E-United won this 250 to 150, a pretty convincing game. LG jumped out to a nice lead during the first rotation, but E-United ended up turning up in the second and bringing the game back from being down 70 points, and they won the map. They only allowed LG 25 points in the second rotation whenever they came back. The second map was Arden's Forest S&D. This was also a convincing win for E-United 6-2. John got an ace in the first round, and then E-United just took the next 5 in a row to put it on game point. LG were able to make one more round, but E-United already had the game put away, and they won the next round to win it 6-2. And the thing about Luminosity is that they're never out of a series because they have JCap on their team, so that pretty much means even if they're down 0-2, there's going to always be a map number 4 because JCap is so good at CTF. And map number 3 is Arden's Forest, CTF, and Luminosity ended up winning this one 4-1. LG start the map up well with a cap in the first half, as well as John getting streaks. And then they also get a cap near the end of the first half to go up 2-0 in the first. To start off the second half, there was a stalemate situation which LG won to go up 3-0, and finally put in one more cap to go up 4-0, while E-United only got 1 cap in the second half, and Luminosity won this one 4-1. Map 4 is in Arden's Forest. Luminosity won this 250-11. This was a pretty close game. The first rotation was all tied up between both teams, and then finally the second rotation, LG finally found themselves a 30-point lead, and they were able to build on this until the game ended in the third rotation to win it 250-211. And of course, it's just fitting to come down to a game 5, round 11. Luminosity won this one 6-5 on London Docks. LG won the first round, but then Pristini clutched a 1v2 for an ace, and then a 1v3 in back-to-back rounds to take 2 rounds in a row for E-United, as well as taking another round to win 3 in a row. Then both teams traded out rounds back and forth until E-United finally pushed game point, but LG were able to take the next 2 rounds in a row to win the game 5, round 11. John also had 15 kills in this game, so he went off. The third matchup was Optic versus Unilad, and this was a 3-1 to Optic. Map 1 was the London Docks, and Optic won this one 250 to 125. Optic jumped out to almost a 100-point lead in the first rotation, so they were looking really good. And then they continued to hold the lead all the way until the game ended with the 80-plus point lead throughout at least the entire map. Map number 2 is very anticlimactic. It was a 6-0 for Optic Gaming on St. Marie Dumont S&D, and there's not much to say about it. They pretty much just dominated Unilad, and it was looking pretty slow for Unilad until the next map. Map 3 was Ardens Forest CTF, which Unilad was able to take 3-0. The first half started with a very long stalemate, and that ended with extra time, and Unilad ended up getting the cap in like less than a second left. In the second half, Unilad was able to get the first cap on the board as well to go up 2-0 and got streaks. And while they put a third in with 30 seconds left in the match to put Optic away for good and win that one 3-0. The final map of this series was Valk, and Optic won this one 250-237. This was another close one. It wasn't close to start out, but Unilad came back and made it interesting. So Optic went up 60 points in the first rotation, but in the second, Unilad were able to narrow it down to about 40 points. And then in the beginning of the third rotation, Unilad had an insane comeback where they only needed about 13 more seconds. And then Scumpy got a 3-piece to seal the game and win it 250-237. The fourth matchup of the day was Rise vs Complexity. No surprise here, it was a Rise 3-0. Map number 1 is Gibraltar, and this one's actually surprisingly close. It was a 250-247 win for Rise Nation. Ricky had controller issues, which could have been a deciding factor as well because it was only a 3-point game. Throughout the first rotation, Complexity held a slight lead, and they also held the lead pretty much throughout the most of the game. And going into the second rotation, Rise was able to cut down the lead a little bit. Going into the final rotation, Complexity only needed 3 points to win it, and Rise Nation needed 15, and Rise actually held Complexity out of Pit Senate Hill for the entire 15 seconds and won it 250-247. Map number 2 is London Docks S&D. This was a 6-3 for Rise. This game started out close, with the first 4 rounds being traded back and forth, but Rise ended up taking the next 3 rounds after that to push game point. Complexity eventually did win one more with some nice knife stuff like that, but Rise ended up closing it out in the next round to win it 6-3. Final map was an Ardens Forest, and this was a Rise 4-1 victory on the CTF. Rise got the first cap on the board, and Slasher got full streaks, but Complexity actually instantly countered with their own flag to tie it up 1-1, and then the first half ended in a pretty long stalemate that went all the way through extra time, but no one could get the flag back. Rise started out the second half with the flag cap in under a minute, and they also got full streaks again, so they put up 2 more caps, put the game away 4-1, and won the series 3-0. The final series of the day was Tainted Minds versus Mind Freak. This was a Mind Freak 3-2. And Mind Freak started off really strong in the first game, then kind of went away a little bit, but then they came back strong with their backs against the wall in the last 2 maps. So map 1 was a St. Marie Dumont. This has been a good map for Mind Freak throughout the year. Mind Freak ended up winning this 250-85. Tainted Minds actually had a good start to the map, but Mind Freaks took off in the second half of the first rotation, going up by 60. In the second rotation, Mind Freak barely let Tainted Minds even touch the hill, and they finished the 100-point club to win the map 250-85. But then map number 2 is weird because Tainted Minds went ahead and took it 6-1. Both teams traded off the opening rounds to tie the game up 1-1. Then Tainted Minds decided to go off and win the next 5 rounds in a row to go up 6-1 and tie the series up 1-1. Map number 3 is London Docks CTF, and this was a dominating performance by Mind Freak. They went up 5-0 to win the game. Tainted Minds got the first cap of the first half, as well as another cap at the end of the first half. And again, Tainted Mind came out the second half with 2 more flags to start out, with putting 1 more in with over a minute left in the second half, and that closed out the game 5-0. The fourth map was Gibraltar. Mind Freak finally looked like themselves again with the 250-131 convincing win on hardpoint. The first rotation was pretty close, but Mind Freak held a very small lead. And in the first hardpoint pin sitter in the second rotation, Mind Freak got a full 60 to go up 100 points, and then they closed it out on the final rotation at pit center again to win 250-131. Final map of the last series of the day was a London Docks S&D, and this one was pretty anticlimactic to an epic series. Mind Freak won 6-1. Again, both teams traded the first 2 rounds, but this one was the opposite of Valk, where Tainted Minds ended up winning the 5 rounds in a row, and the Valk, this time Mind Freak won 5 in a row to pull off the series win 6-1. Now guys, let's go take a look at Wednesday's matches. So Wednesday had a schedule looked like this: Mind Freak versus E United, Tainted Minds versus Luminosity, Complexity versus Unilad, Tainted Minds versus Optic, and Luminosity versus Rise. So my predictions for this day were E United, Luminosity, Complexity, Optic, and Rise. And then the outcome ended up being a 3-1 for E United, a 3-0 for Luminosity, a 3-1 for Unilad, a 3-0 for Optic, and a 3-1 for Rise. So my record on the day was 4-1 again, and the record on the week was 8-2, so it's not too bad at all. The first matchup of the day was E United versus Mind Freak, and like I said before, E United ended up winning this one 3-1. So let's get right into the matchup, guys. The first map was Gibraltar, and Mindfreak actually won this one 250 to 177. So it was a pretty convincing win, and E United had a shaky start. The first rotation was very close, and E United actually held a slight lead at the end of it. Then the second rotation was very back and forth, was with Mindfreak taking the lead and then E United taking the lead back. And finally in the third rotation, Mindfreak got some good holds and took the lead and grew it to where they won the match, 250 to 177. Map number 2 was Arden's Forest. This was an E United 6-5. Mindfreak ended up taking the first 3 rounds of this one until E United finally took their first round. E United took another 3 rounds after the first round to take the lead by 1. Both teams traded rounds back and forth until Mindfreak actually got game point first, and E United pushed around 11 and were able to take it as well to win 6-5. We stayed on Arden's Forest for map number 3, and this was a really close E United 5-4 win. E United got the first flag cap on the board in under a minute in the first half, and this was countered by Mindfreak, and Mindfreak actually relayed a second flag to go up 2-1, and E United was able to tie this up as well at the end of the first half with the second flag cap. So it was like 2-2 or something like that at the end of the first half, so it was a very close game. Mindfreak also got the first flag cap in the second half along with another flag cap to go up by 2 flags, and E United closed out the map with 3 flags in a row to win the map 5-4. So this was a very crazy close map, guys. London Docks Hardpoint was map number 4. I'm assuming this was E United's pick, and this was a 250 to 213 win. It was actually pretty close. E United jumped out to a good lead to start out the first rotation. Mindfreak started to fight back a bit in the second rotation, but E United actually held on to their lead. The third rotation, Mindfreak started to really fight back, and they brought it back within like a 40-point game, but E United only needed 15 points, and they were able to break and finally beat Mindfreak and take the series 3-1. Next matchup was Tainted Minds versus Luminosity. This was a pretty easy 3-0 for Luminosity. Map number 1 was London Docks. Luminosity won this one 250 to 195, so it was actually closer than what many people probably would have expected. The first rotation was very close, with Tainted Minds actually having a slight lead. Second started out close as well, and then LG finally took off near the end of the second rotation, and then they were able to finally close out the map in the final third rotation. Map number 2 was a Valk S&D, and Luminosity also won this one 6-3, and they started out by taking the first 3 rounds in a row. Tainted Minds stole a couple rounds here and there, but then LG finally ended up taking the game 6-3. In the final matchup, a Flag Tower, and Luminosity won this one 4-0. Of course they won it. They have JCap on their team. They got 2 flag caps on the board in the first half, as well as another 2 in the second half to take the map 4-0 and win the series 3-0. Third match of the day was Complexity versus Unilad, and this one kind of surprised me. This was a Unilad 3-1, and this is when I started to think maybe Unilad didn't fall off as much as I thought they would have. Map 1 was London Docks, and Unilad won a close one, 250 to 228. Unilad had a small lead throughout the first rotation, and then they also grew it to over 100 points in the second. Complexity ended up fighting back at the end of the second and in the beginning of the third, bringing it back to like 25 points. But in the end, Unilad only needed 8 points. They ended up breaking the last 2 they needed to and won the game. Map number 2 is another insanely close map with a Unilad victory on Texas 6-5. Unilad were able to take the first 3 rounds in a row, but then Complexity finally found their first round, as well as taking another 2 before Unilad fought back with 2 in a row to push the game point, so it was 6-3 at the time. Complexity was able to push around 11, but Unilad won it. Zed and Dashi both dropped 16 kills, and Dashi was pretty much sniping the entire time, along with the sniper ace, which was really freaking nice. Map 3 finally saw Complexity winning one. This was London Docks CTF, and they won 4-2. Complexity was able to get the first flag cap on the first half, as well as rallying in a second to go up 2-0. Unilad were able to get a counter at the end of the first half, but that was countered again by Complexity, so Complexity was up 3-1 at the end of the first half. Complexity got another cap on the board in the second half, and Unilad were able to grab one more flag, but they couldn't get back in the game, and Complexity won this one 4-2. Final map of this series was Arden's Forest, and Unilad winning a close one 250 to 226. So Complexity are playing teams close that just can't close out map. In the first rotation, Complexity held about a 40-point lead, and Blast was completely going off. And in the second rotation, Complexity pushed their lead to almost 100 points. Then in the third rotation, though, Unilad pull off a 100-point swing to come back into the game, with Blast slowing down a lot. And Unilad actually win this game 250 to 226 with the insane comeback and win the series 3-1. The fourth matchup was Tainted Minds versus Optic Gaming. No surprise here, this was a 3-0 for Optic. The first map was St. Marie Dumont Hardpoint, and this was actually a lot closer than it probably should have been. I don't know if Optic were really trying that hard, but I'm not going to throw shade or anything, but Optic won this one 250 to 233. The first rotation, Optic were able to build themselves a 50-point lead. They grew their lead up to 80 points in the second rotation. In the third rotation though, Change of Minds had different plans and they started to come back and they brought it back within only needed 17 points to win, and Optic ended up clutching it up, breaking the last hill and winning it 250 to 233. Map 2 is a St. Marie again, this time S&D of course. Optic won this one 6-3. Both teams started by trading out the first 6 rounds, so it was tied 3-3, but Optic were able to take 3 rounds in a row to close out the game 6-3. And then the final map was Orange Forest, and Optic completely blow out Tainted Minds here with the 7-1 victory. Tainted Minds were able to actually get the first flag cap on the game with a 30-second flag cap in the first half, and then from that point on it was all Optic. There's not much more to say. I think they put in like 4 flags in the first half along with another 3 in the second half, so that's pretty much it. Optic won at 7-1 and they won the series 3-0, no surprise there. Final series of the day was Rise versus Luminosity. This one also does not surprise me. This is a 3-1 Rise, but of course Luminosity with their capture the flag, they were able to take at least one map of this series, but let's get right into the series, guys. Map 1 was Valk Hardpoint. This was a 252-7 win for Rise, so it wasn't that bad of a game for Luminosity. They just couldn't quite keep up with Rise. Luminosity actually started out pretty slow in this match, but John kept them in the game during the first rotation, with Rise having a small lead to start it out. In the second rotation, Rise pushed their lead to over 50 seconds, and Luminosity fought back, but it wasn't enough because Rise closed out the game at the beginning of the third rotation. Map 2 was Orange Forest, and Rise won this one 6-4, so yet another close map for Luminosity. Luminosity started out by winning the first 2 rounds in a row, so it looked good. Then Rise tied it up with the 3 rounds in a row. Both teams traded out the rounds until Rise got game point first, and they closed out the map after they found game point, and they won it 6-4. Map 3 was Flag Tower CTF, and this was Luminosity's lone win. They won this one 2-1. LG was able to strike first in the first half with an opening cap in under a minute. LG got a cap to close out the first half in extra time as well to go up 2-1. It took almost 4 minutes, but Rise finally got a cap in the second half, but it wasn't enough. They couldn't get another one, and LG held on to win the map 2-1. It was another close one. The last map of the day was St. Marie Dumont Hardpoint. This was yet another close one, with Rise winning this one 250 to 229. Rise came out looking good with a 60-point lead in the first rotation. Luminosity were able to fight back and they actually took the lead for a little while, but Rise still the lead back at Lookout Post. The final rotation was back and forth, with both teams holding a good lead at one point until Rise finally closed it out 250 to 229. And this is going to be it for Wednesday's matches, so let's get right into Thursday's matches, guys. Thursday was the final day, and the schedule went like this: Complexity versus Mind Freak, Tainted Minds versus Unilad, Rise versus United, and then to close it out, Optic versus Luminosity. This day actually had 2 Game 5s, and I think there's more Game 5s this first week than there was, like, pretty much all of Division A, which is weird because this was supposed to be the less tight division, I guess. But let's get into my prediction, guys. My predictions for Complexity, Tainted Minds, Rise, and Optic. And of course, United had to spoil it. So the outcome was actually Complexity, Unilad, United, and Optic. I probably should have taken United considering that Rise hasn't beat United in forever, but whatever. So my record on the day was 2-2. My record for the week was 10-4, so not terrible. Game number 1 was a Game 5. And it was Mind Freak versus Complexity, and Complexity pulled out a 3-2 on this one. Mind Freak come out looking good in map number 1, which is Arden's Forest Hardpoint. Complexity did end up getting good in the first rotation by about 60 seconds, but in the second rotation, Mind Freak decided to come back, and they took a 50-point lead for themselves, so it was like a 110-point swing for them. And in the third rotation, Mind Freak got the job done by locking down the last 2 hills, and they won it. Map number 2, Mind Freak also looked good again, so they went up 2-0 in the series. The first 6 rounds were traded back and forth between both of these teams, and Mind Freak finally got a 2-round lead to push the map to game point with streaks on 2 players, and they were able to close out the map without dropping another round, guys. London Docks, map number 3 was when Complexity started their comeback, and they won this one 4-3 on CTF. Complexity were able to get the first flag cap on the board in the first half, and they were able to put up another 2 caps, while Mind Freak only put up 1 in the first half. So pretty much at the end of the first half, Complexity led 3-1. Mind Freak was able to get control of the Complexity base at the start of the second, and they got a cap as well as a third cap to start out the second half. Complexity was able to clutch up with less than 30 seconds left in the game, and they won the map 4-3. Map number 4 was a Valk Hardpoint, and Complexity won a close one here at 250 to 236. The first rotation, Mind Freak again jumped out to a 50-point lead, but Complexity brought themselves back into the game to pretty much tie it up. And in the second rotation, Complexity was the team to grab the early lead, and they were able to close out the map, a close one, 250 to 236. The final map was Arden's Forest, and this was a complexity 6-2, so it's pretty convincing. Complexity started out with taking 4 rounds in a row, and Ricky got full streaks. Modern Freak was able to get 1 round before Complexity pushed the game point, and they were able to get 1 more round after Complexity pushed game point, but Complexity put the game away and won it 6-2 and took the series 3-2. Series number 2 was Tainted Minds versus Unilad, and Unilad would end up winning this one 3-1. It was a pretty good series for Unilad. Map 1 was London Docks, and Unilad won this one 250-157. This is a pretty good map and convincing win for Unilad. Unilad were able to grow a 40-point lead in the first rotation, and then in the second rotation they kind of exploded, going up by 80 points and putting them within touching range, and then they finished the game off in the third rotation in the center Statue Hill. Map number 2 is pretty much all Tainted Minds with a 6-2 victory. The game started out with Unilad taking 2 rounds in a row, but then Tainted Minds had different plans and took the next 6 to take the game. Map 3 was a very close Flag Tower CTF, but Unilad ended up edging out Tainted Minds here and got a 2-1 victory. Unilad were able to get the first flag cap of the first half with about a minute left on the board, so it took about 4 minutes. And then in the second half, Unilad got the opening flag cap to go up by 2 caps. Tainted Minds did win a stalemate situation in the second half to bring them back within 1 cap, but it was not enough. They couldn't get the second to tie up the game, and Unilad won this one. Final map was Unilad 250-107 victory on Valk. This was pretty convincing. Unilad had a really good first 2 hills in the first rotation. They got full streaks on 2 different players in the first 120 seconds of the game, so that's very good. And by the end of the first rotation, they would have grown the lead by over 70 points thanks to those streaks. In the second rotation, they were able to grow the lead to over 100 points, and then they obviously closed it out. Series number 3 is Rise Nation versus E United, and this is becoming one of the best rivalries, pretty much because of Clay and Looney. These two are the 2 worst losers, so they're always talking trash. So E United actually ended up winning this one 3-2 in a reverse sweep, so let's get into how they did it. Map 1 was a very close Arden's Forest, and this was a Rise win 244-231, so this one ended up being ended by the time instead of by 250. In the first rotation, Rise was in control of the game, leading by 40 points, and in the second rotation, E United come back to life and they brought themselves into a small lead. In the third rotation, Rise ended up coming back and getting ahead of E United, keeping the game close, but then in the final rotation, time ran out before reaching 250 and Rise ended up winning this one 244-231. Map 2 is a pretty convincing win for Rise. This was a 6-2 S&D on Valk. The first 2 rounds were traded by each team, followed by Rise taking 3 rounds in a row before E United finally answered back with their second round, and then Rise just pretty much put the game away, winning the next 2 rounds, winning it 6-2. Map number 3 was Flag Tower CTF, and E United won this one 5-2, and apparently Rise Nation did not practice CTF, and Clay let them know by screaming, "That's why you practice CTF." Rise Nation ended up getting the first flag cap on the board in the first half, but E United actually get 2 rally caps in to fight back. Second half started out with both teams grabbing the flag, and then E United won a stalemate situation. Rise countered, but E United got another 2 flag caps to win it 5-2. Map 4 is London Docks, and E United won this convincingly. People, stop playing E United on London Docks. They're too good at it. E United were able to get a nice lead in the first rotation, and in the second rotation they grew their lead until they took the map, and this was very convincing. And like I said, stop playing E United on London Docks. You're not going to win. The game 5 is St. Marie, and this was an epic round 11 with E United winning at 6-5. E United took the first 2 rounds in a row, and then Rise and E United traded rounds back and forth after that. E United was able to find the first match point, and Rise actually pushed it to round 11, but E United held on to win the match 6-5, and that's when the trash talk started. #storylines. The last match of the day was supposed to be a new rivalry match. Optic versus LG, old teammates versus old teammates. Optic won this one in a swift 3-0, and it was pretty convincing as well. Map number 1 is Gibraltar, and Optic won this one 250-107. It's a no wonder because they have 2 really good ARs. In the first rotation, Optic held a nice lead, and in the second rotation, they continued to grow the lead up to 120 points, and Optic closed out the game. In the third rotation, nothing really looked good for Luminosity during that game. Map 2 is yet again dominated by Optic. This was a 6-2 round count. Luminosity were able to take the first round, but Optic turned around and took the next 4 in a row before Luminosity finally found their second. After Luminosity found their second round, Optic didn't let them get any more and won the last 2 rounds and won the game 6-2. Final map was Arden's Forest CTF. This was another close one thanks to JCap again. The first half was all defense and ended 0-0 tie, and halfway through the second half, Optic finally got full control of the base, and they got the first flag cap on the board. Luminosity almost tied the game up, but Scump clutched up to get the flag return and get another cap in before the second round ended, and Optic won it 2-0 to get the 3-0 sweep over Luminosity. We're going to do a little bit of a recap of week 1 of Division B. We're going to go over each team. These might not be ordered correctly, but it's okay because they're relative, okay? So Tainted Minds, they don't look as bad as I expected. They had some close matches that they just couldn't clutch up in, and they weren't really expected to win anyway, but they were at least able to take some map, and if these guys get some more practice, I could see them getting in the 5-6 range maybe, depending on how Unilad and Complexity continue doing as well. To me, Complexity was pretty disappointing this week. They won only one match, and they all struggled aside of like Blast and Dash in a couple games, so look for these guys to bounce back. If they can't, it's going to be a struggle for the rest of the week. Mindfreak, they also had somewhat of a disappointing week as well. If they start clutching up games like they should be able to, these guys could be a dark horse for 4th place, so keep an eye on these guys next week. Unilad was a surprising team this week. They actually look a lot better than I was expecting. I expected them to fall off a lot, but their new players actually stepped up, and Weskin's looking good as well. So expect these guys to be a dark horse for 4th place as well as Mindfreak, so this is going to get interesting down the stretch. Luminosity had some close games, but I don't think they're quite there yet. I think they're all struggling with the little bit of a role. It's not really a role change, but they're all struggling with the different play style of Formal. But look for these guys to put it back together and maybe get into the top 3 team range. United is another one of those teams that if these guys start clutching up and winning, they're also a top 3 team. So watch out for these guys because Pristinian, Fellow, and Arstes, and pretty much everyone on that team is playing well. And this team can get scared if they start clutching up against teams that aren't Rise Nation. So be on the lookout for those guys. And finally, I have Rise/Optic in the same boat here. I know Rise is in 2nd place and Optic's in 1st, but all it really takes is Rise winning over Optic and taking the lead. So it's hard to say which one of these teams is better at this point because they both look really good outside of Rise's loss to United. But I think both of these teams have top 1 potential, so we're going to have to wait and see on Thursday for the last match. So that's going to be interesting, guys. And that's going to be the match to watch into week 2, so be sure to tune in and stay watching all the way until the end of Thursday, guys. Now let's look at some stats and my predictions for week number 2. So for my final segment of the day, we're going to go over some stats as well as predictions for next week and like what to look out for, which even though I kind of already did that. But first stat I want to look at is Optic Gaming stats, guys. These guys have 4 of the best 5 KDs last week. These guys are looking insane. I'm going to get into why I think this is after I get into the stats. So Crim6 has a 1.23, so one of your subs has a 1.23, that's good. Methods has a 1.3, your Flex has a 1.3, that's insane. Octane has a 1.2, your main AR has a 1.2, that's about good. That's about as good as it gets. And Scump has a 1.25, your aggro sub has a 1.25, that's insane. And like I said, these are 4 of the best 5. And I think that why this is actually working for these guys is I think that since it's a 2 AR meta right now, Octane and Methods are pretty much just holding it down, and Methods is now playing pretty much the OBJ role in OBJ games. I guess they're OBJ games, and like hardboard and stuff. So now Scump and Crim6 can pretty much just roam around and just do whatever the heck they want. And this is when they're at their best. So this is why they look so scary. But if this meta changes, this could be different. We will have to see going forward in champs and stuff like that. Next, we have a slow start for Luminosity. And the stats are Form with a 0.97, JCap with a 0.92, John with a 0.99, and Slack with a 1.02. I think these guys are having a difficult adjustment as a whole. Formal has a way different playstyle than Octane. So I think that they're not meshing together as well. That and they didn't get much practice with a bunch of stuff. So look for these guys to bounce back and be at least in the positive or even range next week. And then a nice little fact for you guys. Shocks actually had is tied for 4th with Scump with a 1.25. So Shocks has been on absolute terror on Mindfreak, so watch out for that team as well. And finally, I'm going to talk about Complexity and Tainted Minds. These guys both had rough weeks. Everyone on Complexity except for Dashy had a negative KD, as well as everyone on Tainted Minds had negative KD. So Blast had a 0.98, Sensor had a 0.7, which is the lowest. Ricky had a 0.91. Damage on Tainted Minds had a 0.88. Nimble from Tainted Minds had a 0.85. Swiftazor and Swifty both had 0.81s. So look for Complexity at least to bounce back. I think Tainted Minds are going to stay around the same. I think Doug can get his KD up to a 0.91 and Rick can get up to the 1.1 range. I think that Complexity can maybe bring it back, but we will have to see. And with that being said, let's get into my week 2 predictions and the schedule for week 2 as well. So Tuesday's schedule goes United versus Unilad, Optic Gaming versus Complexity, Luminosity versus Mindfreak, Rise versus Tainted Minds, and Mindfreak versus Optic Gaming. So I'm going to take United over Unilad, Optic over Complexity, of course, And my sleeper pick this week is going to be Mind Freak over Luminosity. I think they could clutch up. They've taken Luminosity to Game 5s almost every time they played. I'm not looking for Mind Freak to finally clutch up. Rise versus Tainted Minds, and then Optic over Mind Freak. Wednesday, we're looking at Complexity versus Tainted Minds, Unilad versus Luminosity, E-United versus Complexity, Rise versus Mind Freak, and E-United versus Optic. I also have another sleeper pick here. I'm going to take Tainted Minds over Complexity, so don't let me down, Tainted Minds. I think this will be like this will obviously be the first win, but probably one of their only wins. Then I'm taking Luminosity, pretty easy pick, E-United, easy pick, Rise, easy pick, and then Optic is also an easy pick. Finally, we have Thursday, the last day. So we have United versus Tainted Minds, Unilad versus Mind Freak, Complexity versus Luminosity, and Optic Gaming versus Rise Nation, the most important match. So my predictions here are United, Mind Freak, Luminosity, and then the final match is really hard to pick. This is going to be one of those 3-2 round 11 type games, but I'm going to take Optic in this one because they've looked a little bit stronger. So that's going to put Optic in first place in the division in the driving seat. And that's going to do it for this episode of CWL Recap. It's been a shorter episode because we don't have as much to talk about. Next week we'll go over my predictions for Anaheim and stuff like that. So thank you guys for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe to my new channel, CWL Spot, as well as subscribing to my channel, Ethan HD. It'll be in the description. I will upload Call of Duty content on there as well, like ranked play and public matches. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. This has been Ethan. See you guys next time.